Hey, Bobby here from Coder Foundry. And one of the things that I get a lot of comments on YouTube and as well as seeing Reddit posts and Twitter and the like of people talking about Blazor. And one of the drawbacks a lot of times we're talking about Blazor is writing JavaScript Interop. In fact, a lot of people say, I don't adopt Blazor because of JavaScript Interop because they make the case that it's kind of difficult, or it's hard to do, or they don't understand it. I want to show you today how that's done, and it's not very hard at all actually to write JavaScript and then call that from your Blazor app. It's actually pretty simple once you know the pattern. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I've got this movie app here, and if I hit play here, you can see there's a movie that I can get play, and then I've got these cards here, and if I click on the button, it'll switch the movie for me. Now normally this, or the only way really to do this, is with JavaScript, because HTML5 is built into the browser, and so the video element is inside the browser. And the only way to get to these browser APIs is through JavaScript. So if you're writing a Blazor WebAssembly app, you've got to call this somehow with JavaScript if you want to do this. Now let me show you how you do this in Blazor. We can wire this up. All right, so let's get started. First thing I think we can do is look at the couple of files that we're going to be working in. First, we have a page here called a movie player page. And this is just basic our page that you just saw, and it has a couple of components on it. The first one is that video element. And you can see here that this video element here is just a standard HTML5 video control. There's no Blazor component here at all. And so the only way really to interact with this is through JavaScript. And we're going to use JavaScript Interop when we're running WebAssembly. Now, the other thing that you may be aware of is also have a component called a movie card. And those are the cards that you saw at the bottom that have a button on it, and you click on it and it plays the movie. We need to make sure that this can also interact with this page. So we'll write a callback function that calls JavaScript. Okay, and then that JavaScript will in turn load the correct video in this video player. All right, so let's get started and show you this isn't as bad as you think. So if you want JavaScript on a page, the first thing you have to do is you have to inject the JavaScript at runtime, and that's called IJS runtime. And I typically call mine JS. Now, the other thing that you're going to want to do if you're loading in modules like we will today is you want to dispose of those. So we're going to implement iasync disposable. And this allows us to dispose of any modules or JavaScript modules we load in, because that's kind of how you do it. You've got to load in or import a module into WebAssembly. All right, so the first thing that we've done that now is let's go to solution here. And I want to add a JS file right to this page. So I'm going to right click here and add new item. I'm going to add a JavaScript file, and I'm going to make this isolated, which means that this JavaScript will only apply to this page. And you do that through a naming convention. You name it exactly as the component's name. So I'm going to say movie player.razor.js. Add it. And if you look here now, this is nested underneath the movie player here. So now I have a JavaScript file inside my page component here, movie player. Okay. So let's write our first JavaScript here for this. It's pretty simple. It's exactly like any JavaScript you've been writing. So I'm going to say function, and I'm going to say play movie. And my movie is going to take a couple of parameters. I'm going to say movie name, and then I'm going to also pass it in the video element. I don't want this function to be responsible to figure out what element on the page that's after. It just will work because I'm going to pass it the video element in reference to that and the file name of the movie that I want to display. All right. So now once I have that, I can just type in, let's see, video element. And we'll say src source equals, and my movies are located in a folder called videos. And then I'll use a template literal here, and I'll pass it in the file name. Should work. Make sure that this is an actual template literal. little tic tac there. All right, and then the other simpler thing I can do is say video element. I'm gonna set the volume on it because I don't want it to be very loud or too loud when it starts off. And say equals, and we'll set it to 0.1. Very low. Make sure you spell these right. It is JavaScript, so there is no type checking in here like you're used to in C#. And then we'll hit play. So that's our super simple JavaScript file to interact with our video element. Let's write one more function, a load function, because there is a case where we just want to load the video and not play it. So we'll say load movie, and it'll do the same thing. File name, video element. Let's check our folder here. I think we called it videos. So let me check it to videos here. Okay, file name, volume is set to 1. And its change will be, we'll just load it. All right, so we've got a couple of functions there. Now what I want to do is export these functions and import them as in modules into my JavaScript or into my WebAssembly code. So I'm going to say export in front of this keyword in JavaScript. And that's it. So we've now wrote our JavaScript. And so any amount of JavaScript that you want to write, any functions that you want to import, you just put export in front of it and write them. It's pretty much that simple. All right. So let's see how we call this or get this loaded into WebAssembly. So I'm coming over here to my method here. And what I want to do is I want to load this after the entire page has been rendered. So I need to make sure that if I access elements on the page, that they're there for me to access. And so I have several events inside of Blazor, and one of those is on after render async. And what this runs is, if you mouse over this, if you're in Visual Studio, it says after the UI has finished updating, okay, and all the elements on the DOM have been loaded, okay. Now we also can check to see if we want to do this at the first time. And so at the first render, this is when we want to load in our module. We don't load it in every time the page refreshes, just once will be fine. So I'm going to create a private variable here that's going to hold the module that I want. Okay, so IJS, and it's going to be an object reference. And we'll just say, we'll call this module. Okay, you can call it whatever you want, but we're going to call it module. We're also setting this up saying, hey, this could be null, but we're going to load it in right here. And I'm going to say module equals await. And I'm going to say JS dot. And from here, I want to invoke async. And then I'm going to load in my JS, my object reference, import, and then I got to tell it where my JS is, okay? It gave me some hints there, but that's not right. Ours is located in, and you can look at your solution to find this, components, pages, and then the Blazor JS it's located in. So you just have to type it in here. So we can say components / pages / movie player dot Blazor.js. Just that easy. Okay. So this will tell it where to load it or where to locate the JavaScript file, and then it will import all of the functions that are labeled for export. Okay, and so now we have a complete module here that we can call. All right. So let's see how we would call it, any function. So the first thing I want to do is load in a default movie. So if you go down through here and look, I've got a get movies function here, and I'm loading in all of these movies. The first movie in my list is this movie called Scape Bros. And so what I want to do is load in Scape Bros when the page first loads. So there's a movie already there, and you can hit play. Okay. So let's see if we can do that first. So on the first render, the first time the page comes up, I want to load in a movie. Okay. So I can say await module, and I'll say dot invoke. And this is a void async, so it doesn't, our JavaScript function doesn't run anything. If it did run something, you'd have a type coming back out of it, okay? So let's call our load movie function. So what you do is you put the name of the function in quotes here, okay? So if we go back and look at our JS, this is this load movie function. And then you pass in the parameters in order, okay? So this is in quotes here. And now what I want to do is pass in the file name of the default movie that I want. Well, what is our default movie? Well, if I go over here and I've got my uninitialized here, and this is getting a list of movies, it's going to get the movies, I can grab the first one out of a list. So let's do that. So we've got this private variable called now playing movie. And what I want to do is hold in the first movie in the list initially. So when I do initialize here, I'm just going to say now playing movie equals, and I'm going to say movies at position 0. Okay, so this is an array or a list of movies here. Right here I have a list of movies. And now I'm getting the first movie out of that list, position 0, and I'm storing it in the now playing movie, okay? Because I always want to know which movie does the player hold. All right, so now that I know the movie that I want to load in, I can, right here, put in my first variable here, and I'm going to say now playing movie. But I need the file name. And because I know that this is a class that I have, let me go over and look at this real quick. My movies are modeled here. I have title, poster, and video. This holds the name of the file that I want to play. So I'm going to use the video property here for my movie class. And so I can say dot video. Okay, so that's my first parameter, okay? Now, the next thing that we need to do is grab hold of the video element right here. We need to get a reference to this and pass it to our JavaScript. Now, normally inside of JavaScript, you could use the ID and you could say document.getElement by ID or something like that. Here inside of Blazor, we have another thing called a ref. And we can get a handle to this by calling it to a ref. So let's make another variable here. And we'll call it element reference. So this is an element reference. And we'll call this element reference video player. So now I can just put video player up here because it's a variable. Boom. So now I have a reference to it. It operates a lot like this ID does in JavaScript world, but this gives us a reference to this complete element, all its attributes, properties, like you normally would, you expect from a getElement by ID. All right. And so now what I can do is I can pass in video player here. Boom. So now I'm passing these two strongly typed properties to a JavaScript function, okay? Now notice here, it is important to note that I am running this on after render async, and this is when the DOM has finished updating so that my element reference will be available. If I do this and on initialize, this may not be there, and that's why I'm running it in here. And the other thing is I only want to load this once. I don't want to load this every time there's a change to the page, just on the first render, okay? So that should load in a movie for us. Let's see if it does. I forgot to implement my iDisposable here. Let's do that. So this is right here saying implements, and that means we must implement this interface. So let's do that real quick. Because now that we have a module, now we have something actually to dispose of. So I'm going to say async value task. And if module is not null, then dispose async. And this will run and clean it up for us when we run it. Okay, so this is real important when you're loading in JavaScript modules that you do dispose of them. Put a semicolon here. Got any? Let's build this before we try to run it and see if we got any other issues. Okay, so now let's run it. So our page runs and check it out. We do have a video running up here. Kind of cool. Loaded it in. Another thing here, notice here, I've got an overlay here with the title in here. And so I don't really I'd like to put the title in there when it loads up. So let's see if we could add that. So what I can do is, because I know what this now playing video is, if you look in here, there's also a title element as we looked at before. So I can add this right here to my code here inside of Blazor. Makes it pretty simple. So I'm going to put a colon here and say at, and we'll say now playing movie dot title. Boom. Okay. Now it's saying that this could be null. We'll say we'll allow a null reference here. We'll say, hey, this can be null, and that's just fine. And we also get in a null warning here as well. That's what that green underline's for. And so we could say, hey, if this is null, don't try to load it. So let's just do that. Let's just do a check here and say if now playing. It should always be here, but you know, you never know. And so now we can get rid of that green line. So this means this load will not happen if this is null, but we're loading it here on initialize. But if someone came in and changed their code, or this didn't run for whatever reason, this wouldn't blow up because it would just skip over it. Okay, so let's see if we've got our title in there now. And we do. So we've got our Skate Bros title loaded in there. We can hit play and you can see now our movie's playing. But notice here, when I click on these, nothing happens. So now we need to make sure we wire up this button to change the video out here, and then we'll be done. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so let's look at our component here, just see how this works if you're new to Blazor. This is a UI component right here, and you can see here it's just some HTML that I've written, and it has a button in here that says play, okay? And then it says on click, play movie. Now, if you come down here, this is my function here called play movie, but then I have a parameter that allows me to call a movie back in the parent. So it's a callback. So this value or this event is being pushed back up to the parent. And that's pretty powerful for components. Pretty easy for us to wire this up. So now our component doesn't need to know anything about the parent or the page that it's placed on. It just triggers an event and says, hey, I've clicked my play button. Okay. And it's up to us at the page level to figure out what to do with it. All right. So now that we know sort of how that works, let's go back over to our movie page. That's over here. And let's see if we can wire up this button here. Okay. So I'm going to come to my card here. And you can see here, I've got a couple of parameters here, and one of them said on playback. If I click that, I need to give it a name of a function or a method that I want to call on this page. So let's write one. So I'm going to write a brand new method here. And we'll say private async void, doesn't return anything. And then we'll call it play movie. And it needs a type of movie here. Now the next thing that it can do is it can set, when we hit play, it says, hey, you know what? It's playing now. The now movie is playing. So now we set that equal to the movie that's being passed in from the component. Now let's go back, look at our component so you understand a little bit more what's going on. So the input parameter gives this a movie, a specific instance of one of the movies in our list. The callback passes that instance back out. So we have a type going on here in our callback. We're passing back out a movie. Okay, the instant of the movie, the one that was piped in. All right. So if we go here and look at our movie player, and we come in here, we can see we're looping over each of the items in our movie list, and we're passing in a movie for each card. And now on our callback, we can say, you know what? I want you to call this function when they click it. And so I'm going to say on play movie. And that's it. That's all we have to do. And because it's passing a value back, this parameter will get loaded because it's been defaulted over there on our callback. Now, the other thing that we could check here, we could check to see if we have JavaScripts or our modules saying, hey, this could be null. So why don't we just check that to see if our module is null. We can say if module is not null, and this is our JavaScript. And let's just wrap this. We don't want to call anything. That we don't want. Okay. Change that to avoid async. All right. Now the thing that I want here is I don't want to call load movie. I want to call play movie on this one. So remember our play movie. This is when they click the button. I want it to play. And then I want to pass in the movie video and then our reference to our video player. Now notice here that our reference is defined up here. So that's global to all of these methods in here. So I can just put it in there. And then I'm getting the instance that's being passed out of the current card into here. So I only will get the movie that's in the current card. I also can make this just a bit more consistent here. We'll say now playing video. Yeah, we'll do it like that. So we're calling it the same way as we did up here. All right, so that's play movie. It's passing the video file, and then boom, that's it. All right, let's run it now. See what happens. So it loaded in skate rows. What if we click before the storm? Will it change it? Sure enough, there it does. It's changing it. So got all of our movies here, all loaded in. Kind of cool. Maybe I could change the style here based on the current movies and maybe show some like style that says, hey, this is the selected movie that's playing. Okay, now that we know that this will only load in the movie that's in the card. All right, let's see how we could do that. All right, so one of the things that I have here is I have a now playing movie. Okay, so now I know the instance that has been clicked on. All right, and so that's being reset. Every time someone clicks on the button, this function gets called and I reset this variable. What I could do is I can now pass something back into my movie card that says, hey, if this is the now playing video, do some stuff. All right, set a class or whatever you want to do. And I'll show you what we want to do. Okay, so let's add a parameter to this movie card. I'll come back over to my movie card here. I may already have it. If I don't, I'll just add it. Let me add I've got it right here. I've got a parameter that has the title of the now playing movie. So I want to say the now playing movie. I want to check the title string. Okay. And so I want to set this. And what I can do is I'm going to come up to this HC card where this class is, and I want to add this class to it. And what's selected is, if you go look at our CS here that's inside this card, selected just puts a solid yellow border. That's what this color is. 3 pixels, and it'll put it around the card there. So that's all this class is doing. But I need to conditionally add this if it's been clicked on. Okay. All right. So that's what I want to add here. And this is pretty slick the way that Blazor works here. and it allows us to do things like this pretty easily. So I'm going to write code right here in my front end here. I'm going to say @ and this will be our code block here that we want to put in here. And I'm going to say now playing. Okay, so the title that's passed in here, does it equal the instance that's passed in? If it is, that means it's selected. If it's not selected. Okay, so I'm going to say equals movie.title. And then I'm going to use a ternary here. So I'm going to say if this is true, add selected, else make it empty. Boom. And now all I need to do now is make sure that this is set in my movie page. So I'm going to go back to my movie page here. And I'm going to add it right here. So I've got a parameter now playing, and it'll be dark green here because it knows that this movie card has this parameter. And now what I can do is add some now playing dot title. We'll pass the title to it. All right. So now what's going on here is if this changes the value of now playing, which it will every time this is clicked, this for each loop will get re-executed. And it'll check to see if the title equals the title of this movie and only colorize the one that it needs to. Now you can see here, it's already selected this, but if I click on here, watch, it sets this to yellow around it, and these others are not selected. So as I go through here, they aren't selected here. Okay, well that's JavaScript Interop. What's next? Well, if you want to and you want to learn Blazor, you can check out our Blazor course. Go to coderfoundry.com. We'd love to be your teacher, your coach, your mentor, and help you learn this exciting technology, Blazor. We think it's going to be really hot, really in demand. And you can see here, it's the first time Microsoft has really brought the front-end tool set with the back-end server-side framework they have, with a front-end framework, component-first framework. It's very exciting what you can do with Blazor. And you also, as you've seen today, it's not that hard to write JavaScript Interop. Anyway, I hope this helps. Good luck and keep coding.